For weeks previously, Julius Malema had been a dogged critic of what he continuously referred to as the rot in government. His accusations, unforgiving and biting, were leveled against all senior ANC members right up to top ministers who, in his opinion, had betrayed the public trust. He had resonated his message on social media and at public demonstrations, threatening that the economic freedom fighters, EFF, would not stand idly by as the people of South Africa were, in his description, sold out by the very leaders sworn to serve them. His inflammatory words touched a raw nerve with many angry citizens, especially young South Africans and the jobless, who responded to his activism as an uncommon act of defiance against established power. Within Parliament, Malema's language was just as aggressive. Session after session, he called for answers on a variety of issues from blockbuster corruption scandals to the broken public utilities. His speeches tended to make headlines, but his newest Showdown had the potential to be the biggest yet. At the center of this specific confrontation was a charge that a concerted cover-up of state contracts was being hatched at the top echelons of the government. The mood within the chamber during this day was charged with tension. Members glared at each other menacingly. Even before Malema spoke, security officials had unobtrusively taken their places across the hall. An unwritten acknowledgement that this debate could quickly get out of hand. The precise moment that ignited what is now being labeled one of Parliament's most high-drama breakdowns is already being replayed on every major news channel. As Malema stood at the microphone, the room fell silent, anticipating. His initial words were measured, but in a matter of seconds, his tone had hardened. The Speaker of Parliament cut him off repeatedly, warning him against using unparliamentary language. But Malema, never one to be silenced, persisted undeterred. His voice grew louder, ringing out in the chamber with righteous indignation. He made new accusations naming particular ministers. He charged that they were siphoning the soul of this nation and went further still, denouncing the government as a mafia disguised as a democracy. The response was instantaneous. There was a collective gasp of shock in the chamber. ANC MP shouted for an immediate withdrawal. The Speaker, clearly exasperated, gave the strident warning. "Honorable Malema, you are out of order. Please leave the chamber." The instruction was given in firm tones, but no one could have anticipated what followed next. Rather than reacting with his signature defiance, storming off with his head held high in a grin for the cameras, Malema was frozen. For several interminable seconds, he stood there nearly paralyzed. His face was red with rage, his normally firm voice shaking. To the observers, it appeared that he was torn between fury and despair. He bowed his head and remained silent, an unusual and uncharacteristic lapse in a man famous for his hot temper and brashness. Parliament's security guards started advancing towards him, anticipating fight. But just as they reached him, Malema suddenly bellowed, not angrily, but in a choking voice. "You want to shut me up because I represent the poor. You want to take me out because I tell the truth. But I won't be silenced." The sentence boomed hoarse and unmodified, resounding across the chamber with a gravity that muffled even his most outspoken critics. Cameras filmed every second. They recorded the welling tears in his eyes, the fists clenched at his sides, trembling, the tiny shake in his voice. This was no fiery revolutionary public persona he so frequently adopted. This was a man visibly weighed down by the burden of his cause. When he eventually retreated, surrounded by security, the chamber fell silent. Even MPs who had been jeering at his ouster moments before sat agog, wondering how to respond to the vulnerability they had just witnessed. In the outside world beyond Parliament, the political sphere responded with alacrity. In seconds, Twitter hashtags such as #MalemaBreakdown, #Efroma, and #PloriChaos were trending #1 on X. Videos of Malema's tearful moment were viral within TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. By nightfall, international news had picked up the news, making what could otherwise have been a normal parliamentary drama an international headline. The public was bitterly divided. Some lauded the Speaker for upholding order and discipline within Parliament, terming Malema's conduct disgraceful, acting, or even a staged political gimmick. Others interpreted the episode as more profound, a harrowing display of vulnerability from a beleaguered leader. To them, it was not weakness, but a candid glimpse of an untested man standing firm on what he knew was right, even as the establishment moved to shut him down. Political analysts were quick to analyze the ramifications. Was this the end of the road for Malema's political steam? Would this emotional outburst sully his status as a fearless provocator? Or on the other hand, might this episode make him seem more human to the voters and trigger a surge of renewed goodwill towards the EFF? There is no doubt that Julius Malema is still the soul and heart of the EFF. His expulsion from Parliament in such theatrical fashion sends the party's future into temporary limbo. Questions are now in the air. Is it possible for the EFF to project its image as fiery, uncompromising, without seeming rowdy or reckless? Will Malema's tearful outbursts strike a chord with the youth and oppressed communities who view him as their lone true champion? Those inside the EFF have begun to provide their own analysis. One senior party official, off the record, called the collapse at the moment the whole system beheld his humanity. Another cautioned that the incident could rebound on the ANC and energize the base of the EFF, paving the way for electoral revenge. Initial reports indicate that the EFF are beginning to mobilize mass rallies in defense of their leader in an attempt to turn what was initially a private moment of weakness into a cause célèbre for a wider movement. Aside from party politics, the episode has set off a larger national debate on the character of South African democracy. Should Parliament continue as a site for disciplined, controlled debate, bereft of emotional eruptions, or can there be space for passion and openness, particularly from leaders who say they represent millions of voiceless citizens? Malema's defenders say his fervor is just what South African politics requires, a hot-blooded alternative to a ruling class they think has become complacent, out of touch, and corrupt. They say democracy won't succeed if there are no voices willing to shake up the status quo, even if it means risking controversy. Opponents though say that unregulated passion and theatrical posturing threaten to undermine Parliament's dignity. They caution that this kind of activity undermines public faith in democratic institutions, rendering high-level political dialogue into spectacle.